Abel is the new friend who was formerly in the corporation. And while he was in the corporation, he introduced the Hugh chant to his friend, whose daughter's health was failing. So after chanting the Hugh for some time, his friend's daughter's health improved considerably. And so Abel's friend decided to join the corporation and started reading the discourses. And soon after, everything went into reverse gear. But Abel's friend still had faith in the Hugh chant, and he clung to it. But in the interim, Abel knew about the new song and started doing it. And then he decided to introduce it to his friend, and even giving him Duane and Ava's photo they are on Facebook. But his friend would not hear anything about the new song or the new presentation. He continued to chant the Hugh, and his situation went from bad to worse. Then one day he decided to call his friend Abel, who taught him how to sing the new song by telephone. And Abel's friend started doing this new song, and then things started happening. So one morning at 5:30 a.m., Abel heard a knock on the door and opened it. To his surprise, he saw his friend, and he had his discourses, his corporation discourses in his hand. He had discourses in his hand, and they shouted at the top of the voice, "Take back your discourses." So Abel was perplexed and asked his friend what the matter was. And then his friend just shouted, saying, "I was a slave, but didn't know it." He then narrated to Abel the experience he had had the night before. Before going to bed, he had sung the new song. And then he had this experience. He said he found himself in a certain valley where he was subjected to excruciating forced labor. And then he says, curiously, there was also Harold Clem, who was one of those subjected to this very hard labor. And their handlers shoved him back and forth, just like the other slaves working in the valley. But he says, however, there were people there who still adored him, and sometimes they helped him with his assigned tasks. And then all of a sudden, in this experience, all the slave masters, together with the slaves, they lifted their heads up. They lifted their heads and looked up. So Abel's friend too wanted to find out what was attracting their attention. So he too looked up. And all of a sudden, he saw Duane the new man appear wearing a short sleeve white shirt, looking very simple. Everyone held their breath in expectation, as whoever Duane pointed at was instantly released from bondage by the real guides. Our new friends say when he used to chant the Hugh, he also had a talisman, just in case the Hugh failed him. But he says with the new song, he does not see the need for a supporting talisman anymore. So that is what this friend says. Maybe Duane has some comments on this experience.
This Harold's place of business, the valley?
It's a place where Harold is doing hard labor.
Oh, that's the idea of working for God. Co-worker with God, that's the idea. Yes, anybody can do it. Become a co-worker with God. That's the idea with the corporation. Yeah, Paul started that off. And we all go through, like the boot camp. It's okay. We all go through these different systems. But eventually, like boot camp with the military, it's usually like 13 weeks or something, whatever it is, whatever they've decided it to be. It's interesting, it's 13 weeks usually. It's the 13 families, that rule the world, etc. All these ideas that are here because it's human farming. But it's okay to go through these things. But at the same time, if you keep doing it, then that's all that happens. So this is a far out experience. Yes, I wear T-shirts. That's all I wear, T-shirts and shorts. So I don't wear the suit like Harold does. But this is really cool. Yes, the Africans, as they pay attention, the experiences are coming through. Of course, we've had many. And this fella here, where's he at? Nigeria or Congo or where, Charles?
Yeah, he's in Congo. He's in Congo.
Okay, he's part of Miriam's group?
Yeah, he's part of Miriam's group.
Oh.
Yeah, what is very intriguing is that he came and told his friend Abel that he had been a slave. He was a slave and he didn't know it. And he found himself working very hard, doing very hard labor together with Harold. So I don't know whether you can look at this slave aspect of the statement.
Well, the corporation members, like any of these things, it takes a little while to see it. It takes a little while for us to wake up. And it's okay. It's part of the experience. We need to go through whatever. But all of a sudden you realize what you're supporting. It's just like people that work for the governments. And, at first it's like, oh, gee, I work for, an agency or even in the White House. People think, oh, this is a great honor and whatever. But as they work there and as they start to see what's going on, and at first for the longest time, they're going to deny it. But these institutions, these agencies and governments, again, the birds and nature, they don't have governments. The Indians never had governments, standing armies, etc. These things are made to look good, but they're never what people think they are. And these spiritual paths, and most of them, etc. Yeah, some of them have good intentions, but they still don't have a real recognition of what's going on. And the God idea is very heavy. That's been a heavy burden for people. And so when people go to the seminars, when they buy the courses, buy the books, they don't see who they're really supporting. They think it's something so-called divine, which is that's scary too. Even that term, like I've said before, holy and divine. Holy refers to holes in your aura. That's where it really first came from. And divine is the old saying, dying on the vine. And see, they've taken these ideas and turned them into something that you think is sacred. And it's just like, Joni and Harry have used the works, his writings and others, and turning them sacred. Well, there's no such thing as that. The sacred comes from sacrifice, is what it comes from. At what point do words in a book or on paper become sacred? You see, does it magically happen, etc. So what the individual is seeing is that he's been supporting. In other words, this is how the monetary system works also. It actually steals the individual's labor we don't need the monetary system, but the whole idea is to steal people's labor by the very fact of how the money is utilized. It's very interesting how it is. But again, it takes a while to wake up to this, and at first it looks so official, but yeah, it takes courage to step up and not stay emotionally attached to these ideas and just simply see how things really are. So, yes, that was terrific, Charles. Thank you so much. Yes, so he can go tell everybody. What was this fellow's name? Was his name Abel, or was it the other fellow? What was his name?
He was. His name is not mentioned. It's just say Abel's
Oh,
friend.
oh, okay, okay, all
Abel's
right.
friend.
Yeah, and yeah, it's I understand too. It's just, as people discover these things because of how the world is, and they know their situation, just like in many countries that are mostly of some kind of religion, people cannot talk about anything or they'll be arrested, persecuted, and even destroyed. This is how the world is. This is how this human farming planet is. And we've been here many times now, waking up to see what's really going on. And yeah, you have to have some courage, or you stay stuck here. And he could have taken that experience anyway at all, thinking that, oh, I'm working for the master and it's hard work, but this is God's work, and etc. The God idea again, all invented by the reptilians. There's no such thing as gods. Yeah, we're free beings of real life. We just got to recognize this, and then we're fine and get on with our adventure. And huge challenge here, but yes, thank you, Charles. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we want to live without restrictions, without laws and regulations that hem us in. And as you say, you always say, in fact, we would love to be like the birds of the air, the fishes in the rivers, streams, and oceans, and live in a state of nature and unbounded freedom. So the new presentation is all about true freedom, and it appears everyone wants to approach. People out there want to approach this freedom from their own angle to suit their particular intent. Let's look at some of these expressions of freedom. So, adultery has just been allowed in South Africa. So, a man or a woman cannot repudiate one another because of adultery. And the burning Bibles is openly witnessed in Uganda. And from all indications, the U.S. predicates good relations with other countries on condition that those countries accept homosexual marriages and other things about gays. So Germany has just signed a law which declares that there is no more incest. Brothers and sisters can marry, mom and son, father and daughter, etc. And in the city of Miami, Florida, it has just been proclaimed. It has just been proclaimed a city of public sex, which means that on the road, the market, the football field, you can satisfy the urge without molestation, just like the birds and the fishes do without obstruction. And in somebody just talked about the endorsed the authorization of prostitution of minors. And the U.S. has openly opened the church of the U.S. has publicly opened the church of Satan. So we find that people want to be free to do as they please, and these pronouncements kowtow to these desires that people have. And if we look at what Duane advocates,
Okay,
What?
Charles, you go ahead. You went off there for a moment. Go ahead.
Sorry?
You're going off and on.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
is your microphone got a short in it or something? Or yeah.
No, my microphone is
There you
okay.
go. Okay, there you go. You're okay now. Go ahead.
So I was just saying that in advocating a life without restriction and laws as a precursor to real freedom. So is the new presentation not somehow condoning these excesses too, Duane? Because people might want to think that, the new presentation is also for this kind of things to let people uh, do as they please, just to be like the birds of the air and all the like. So, what can you say about these expressions, and they call bizarre expressions of freedom, Glenn?
Okay, people have they have the free will to, it's a choice. What you're talking about, Charles, is choice. We're on planet Earth. Okay, it's very simple. It's choice, and it's not about condoning anything. Here's the idea. It's not a for nor against position. In other words, just because something isn't spoken about doesn't mean it's condoned. In other words, like the chemtrails, we do speak about those things because they're poisoning us. But at the same time, we're not going to be blowing the planes out of the sky. That's not the idea either. And so what people do, the whole thing that you went over there, all the funny stuff, um, those are choices. And just like, the color shirt you wear, pants, those are choices. So if you want to wear red or black or white or whatever, those are simply choices. And Ava, let me know about these things. I never follow these things. Okay, San Francisco's a big deal up there. Val would know more about it, but the gays, which is fine. I've known gay people and I like them. They're fine. They're people like us, and they have certain attitudes. Fine. Uh, I don't think here or there about things. And there was something on Facebook yesterday. Ava saw it. Uh, do we still decide, or do we have an attitude or something about color? Or do we call people by color? Black people, white people, yellow people, whatever. Okay, so sometimes if it's appropriate to get their attention or refer to something, sure. Okay. But usually it's, Africans, Indians, Asians, whatever. Of course, sometimes the blacks call us whiteys, or the idea is that's mighty white of you, Again, these things are funny. So uh, I sometimes call the black people, if I'm going to refer to them, as extra tan people. So again, I have fun with this. But, you have all these ideas, and, it's just like being in a prison yard. Okay, just imagine yourself in a prison yard, because the planet's prison planet, and that's okay too. It's part of the experience. And yes, you can sit down on the ground, you can lay down on the ground, you can stand up, you can, you know, uh, you know, hit your hands against the wall. You can do all kinds of things. That's all choice. So what we have here is, yes, you have freedom of choice, is what you have. But real freedom is recognized. It's a recognition. It's not something that's handed to a person. The opportunity is there. So in other words, when the real guides show up, they provide the opportunity that you first start off with the knowledge to eventually recognize real freedom. That becomes the difference. We're not into miracles here. All miracles apply to the consciousness in creation, and things happen here, which is fine. But, again, that's kind of the power area, like a white magician and a black magician. So you have many variables in creation that really look good and seem to be so. And this is where, like I've written about and said, that, all freedom here is implied. It sounds good. And again, The governments have established these ideas. The human farmers, the controllers, have established these ideas, and we've agreed to them. We've agreed to be suppressed by these things, and it's okay. It's like a giant boot camp. So at a certain point, you decide to wake up. And when you're on a world where most people are not awake, you become the oddball. You become like the odd person. And so, again, you make the decision. And so, like that first experience you were talking about when I was pointing to somebody, in other words, people want their so-called, will use the idea of religious, spiritual freedom and all these things, which those are just things you go through. Those are little cute little ideas. But like anything, it's like applying for a job. It's just like that. So when you apply for a job, you fill out the resume and you tell your qualities and whatever. You write them down and you specify your experience and if you went to college or whatever it entails. And then you give them your resume and they look at it and they go, okay, well, you don't qualify or you do qualify. And the same with when people are looking for so-called truth. They start off with that area because everybody has their own truth. And there are many types of truth around the world that are labeled as truth, whatever. But everything in life is in life. It just is what it is. And so the experiencer, where I'm pointing at somebody, it's recognizing that they do qualify. They are given the opportunity, but not everybody is picked. It's really where the real guides pick you. Okay, they give you the opportunity, just like fruit, just like the farmer when he goes along if he has an apple orchard, he goes along to see which fruit is ripe, and the ones that aren't, leaves them on the tree. It's the same way, and the ones are, he picks them, etc. So, this is where we earn our way, and we have to qualify ourselves, and it's very, very important to see this because, again, for us to position ourselves and to recognize this reality and to stand real with it. This is what's very, very important, is to stand real with it. And this is where the membership idea does not work. Just because you join as a member and you pay $50 a month or a year or something like that, that's a nice thought. And then you unconsciously just forget it and you just go back to your present lifestyle. So your state of consciousness in creation basically is the same. You have not improved it at all or recognized. So there becomes a lot of difference here. So again, it's choice. And why is it that if a person, if they want to, one man wants to marry another, or one woman wants to so-called marry, the marriage thing started from the reptilians. That's all, this whole marriage ceremony thing. Again, do the birds do this? And why is it, what's funny to me is that why do people look for approval from their captors? Why do they look to the government to actually, these people get all excited, oh, they passed a law. This state has it. We can have gay marriages. We can do whatever we want. We can marry our family, whatever. Fine. Why would you need approval? I never looked for approval when I was married and, Rebzar brought in, like in book 2, Heather, etc., and things were going on, etc., because, again, this was part of my experience that they brought into me. I didn't really look for it. It just appeared. And so, again, things went the way they did. I didn't look for approval from anybody, etc. And whether that be right or wrong or indifferent to the so-called ideas that have been established, the 10 Commandments and all these things like that, again, people are always looking for approval. This is what's kind of humorous, especially the gay community. That's their business. And it's not a matter of condoning it, because when you use the word condone, basically the idea is that, oh, you're okay with this, and this so-called promiscuous stuff. You're okay with this. And really that applies to the controllers of the world. So in other words, people are looking for approval. Where do they go? They go to the government agencies or the police or somebody, or religious institutions, which are the controllers too. They're the main controllers, like the Vatican, whatever. They're the number one controllers of the world here, influenced by the reptilians. And so when you use that word condone, you're talking about the controllers. In other words, it's like asking them for permission, isn't it? In other words, they're all right with it. So all of a sudden, so they make a law to make people feel better. This confuses people more, thinking that, well, it's legal, you know. And what, again, with the birds and the animals in nature, what does legal mean? These are mind control ideas. All these things are mind control ideas. I suggest getting on with some projects and even being a farmer or something and growing real food and sharing that with your friends and just having fun and learning to become more aware with the real guides. And, you know, especially with what's going on in the world today, hey, do something real that's beneficial. But, you know, when people get caught up and listen to these political things, because all these things, especially when it's in the media, it's all maneuvered. It's all purposely maneuvered, like the latest thing here with North and South Korea. This stuff is all maneuvered. All the United States and all these things that whatever the president's doing, all these things are engineered to keep people confused. And the media is all controlled. This is all part of the human farming. These are agencies by the governments. And it's not that you have to accept what I'm saying. You'll discover what's going on behind everything. It's really not that hard to see. Now that you know about the real universes, yeah, the Earth is a particular, but as long as you're here, you can step up and share something wonderful, because a lot of people are trapped and unaware and they don't see it. So to creatively present something. So again, all these issues, and I appreciate you bringing these up, Charles, all these issues are continuously created to keep people confused, thinking that because the officialness, the governments and the religious orders and the spiritual paths and the education and the scientific, they're all involved, that it's, this is the officialness of the earth. It's really a bunch of nonsense. It doesn't equal nothing. It all appears to look like something, but it's like in The Wizard of Oz, it's a puff of smoke is all it is. And it's just created ideas and creation. And we can do better. We can take on the challenge of this world. And it is a challenge for people to wake up and see something else. It is really a challenge because they want to stick with their rigidness. So again, the word condoning refers to the controllers. It's like people look to them to say, is this okay we do this? So you're condoning this? It's like, okay. And then they'll bring the church in because they'll use this psychological opposite effect. The church will come in and say, well, you know, the government's condoning this and we don't like it. Well, they're all on the same side. They're just using the psychological approach because they know people want it. That's where they created the nuns and the priests and all that, and they're to be celibates. Well, these people secretly had sex and babies in caves because they know the human urge, and this was a way to control people, saying, no, you can't do this. And then when they catch them, okay, they make them even more slaves to say, okay, we'll forgive you. You say 10 Hail Marys or whatever. But at the same time, you're going to go out there and you're going to steal money from the villagers or whatever for us, the king and the pope and whatever. So that will be your forgiveness. In other words, they manipulate people into doing things because all of a sudden most people carry guilt. And so this is a whole psychological trap that we're going through here. The business world was created by the reptilians. You have all these factors. You have movie stars. You have, just anything in the business world. It's all created by the reptilians to control people. So while we're here, it's not that we're condoning anything, but at the same time, we're becoming more aware and creative with all of this. And this is, again, where, you do something creatively and at the same time, present this to the world, because this is the only way that people can eventually wake up. Real freedom is recognized. There's no freedom here. There can only be implied freedom. That's it. There is no truth here. Everybody has their own truth. Whatever your truth is, hey, have fun. But it's not real truth. Real truth is the isness, to recognize that. It's a recognition. So we've surpassed the religious and the spiritual path ideas that they have, sacred writings and truths and wisdom and all these things. This stuff all is contained in creation, has nothing to do with the real universes, because you know what? You don't need any of it. There's no power there, etc. It's real. It's awesome. And it's right here, right now. But it's a recognition. This is the best part of it. And when you do, then you succeed accordingly. And it doesn't mean your life is going to be easier here. I carry a lot of burden with the stuff that's going on, but it's fine. It makes me more focused continuously, because when you recognize this reality, this isness, it's endless. Yeah, it's not just accumulating knowledge. That's easy. Knowledge is easy. I can pick it out of the air. The fun part for me is to see what will show up in the impressions from life itself and then write about them. This is the fun part. And to make sense of it, it's not hard, because of what's going on in the world. All of a sudden, there's a comparison. And for most people, they would say, no, what Duane is writing is too far out, etc. It doesn't relate. Well, it does relate once you recognize this reality. But when you don't, all you have is your personal self and the accumulated consciousness to refer to. So, of course, it doesn't really relate to that. You see, so it's like, well, where does it fit? But again, the individual has to earn their way. You have to earn your awareness. And until you let life show you and you earn it in its own particular way, to make the effort to recognize it or do something to activate it, well, then you stay the same. And most people just walk away and say, well, I don't get it, it doesn't work. Or, they've had a few experiences. But yes, thank you for bringing that up, Charles. But that's really scraping the bottom of the barrel with what's going on here. The controllers are so desperate for people to stay unaware and dumbed down that they will use every slimy, low-life means to keep people's attention really nowhere. And look at people, they have parades and all this, thinking that they've accomplished something because the law was made, etc. Well, what they've done is they've basically condemned them to the decisions of their controllers, and saying, okay, this is great, you made a law, now we're okay. Well, unconsciously, they're tap-lined. They're tap-lined with that agreement, and that can go on for lifetimes, even hundreds of lifetimes, because, again, they put the emotion into it. They have parades. It's like, oh, we wear pink, we're wonderful, and that's fine. It's a choice. Go out and have fun. It really doesn't matter. It's not about that. It's about your real awareness. But in the meantime, people are caught up in these ideas. I don't pay attention to them. Sometimes, when Ava and I are together, she looks at things in the world and this and that and whatever. It's all a look good scenario. And the way I see things is that, hey, we can do a lot better. And we are, but we're not looking for popularity. That's not the idea. People refer to the idea, well, this is popular, that's popular. Well, staying unaware is very popular. That's the most popular thing on this planet. Being the effect of everything around you and restricted and agreeing to it, that's the most popular. And people are fine with that. And the planet is totally poisoned and more poisoned every day, and everybody's fine with that. That's very popular. So is it about popularity, or is it about waking up and becoming real? In other words, every moment in your life, when you start to look at every moment in your life, not criticizing yourself or inspecting it, but just recognizing the choices and agreements, and especially the ones that are unseen in the unconscious. This is where they really control everybody. To free yourself and recognize this is the best part. And as you do, well, then you're allowing life and the real guides to show you more. So you decide your restrictions. You decide where you're going to stop. You decide. You are the decider of all of this. So again, these are just choices, Charles. That's what you're seeing in the world. But people need to know, and thank you for sharing. Yes, go ahead.